Appreciate that. Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
Okay, welcome aboard, everyone. This is TJ Morris, and I am here in the triangle, what we call TJ3B, which is Bret Lueder in California, Janet Carroll Lessin in Hawaii, and myself, TJ Morris, with all of us as UAP associates. Today, we're welcoming a wonderful guest who is an author of many books in the alien ET UFO community, if you will. We have the UFO Association, UAP Associates, and Bret Lueder is an author, producer, and has his own publishing company. And he produces his own show, Bret Lueder's Show, which we will be on, and we will upload with Janet Carroll Lessin, Aquarian Media. And you can find us all on YouTube. And mine is TJ Morris ET for and Teresa J. Morris. Now, Janet is producing the show. I'm in Texas. Janet Carroll Lessin is Preston Dennett has called in and talked to Bret Lueder. Did you send him the
He says he's
StreamYard
in the green
page?
room waiting to be brought onto the show.
All right, all she has to do is bring him on then, if it's okay with Janet. She says he's in the green room, I guess. And can you punch the button, Janet, in your StreamYard? If not,
Why can't we hear Janet?
Janet, would you like me to go over and open up another StreamYard live video and we'll transfer everything? She has no sound. Why can she not bring on Preston?
I don't know.
Okay.
He's being
Janet,
patient though, so we appreciate that.
I could go over. Mine is producing and going out live on YouTube and on
Don't
Facebook.
complicate it. Don't complicate it. I don't know what's up with you. So I guess we're going to need to talk for a little bit. So TJ, how are
Oh, yes. I'm here, Bret. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. All
No
right.
headphones, no earbuds.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Bret, if you will, I know that Preston Dennett is a young man compared to me and possibly not you. So I think he falls somewhere between you and I. I think he, if I remember correctly, it was 56. But tell me, have you met him? Because I only saw him briefly, not in person, but via phone when Janet was working at a conference. I believe it was the one
Yeah.
Javier Sandoval produced. Can
Okay.
you tell me if you knew him prior to that when
Yeah,
Janet
I was
did?
on the bill with him at a conference in the Bay Area in 2013, and wonderful gentleman. And we were on the same team for one of the games. I forget, it was some kind of a trivia game. It was me, Preston Dennett, and Michael Horn of the Billy Meyer case.
Wow. That's
And then we
amazing.
had a third person. It was a lady, and I always forget who that was, but we were in the running towards the finals, and we lost. But it was a really fun time. He's just a gentleman, and with over 30 books written, I think we can safely say he is the most prolific author and researcher in terms of producing books in the UFO community today. And
I
so,
understood he got involved. Did you? Yes, I understood he got involved. The reason we're bringing him on is he got involved by listening to friends and family, and he's written several books, UFOs over like different parts of the country. He's also, as far as I know, in Mutual UFO Network or has been affiliated, as have I, and probably Brett and Janet, all of us at one time or another. And people pay memberships into MUFON, and UAP Associates is something we have, but I want to just play a tribute to Dr. Bruce Maccabee, PhD, because he got us started a long time ago, for many, many years prior. And I don't know if Preston Dennett has written about Dr. Bruce Maccabee or Stanton Friedman, but there are older gentlemen who have passed over now, and we are here hoping to continue the legacy with Bret Lueder, Janet Carolus, and myself, with what everyone in the old guys have started, including Bob Dean, which is one of Janet's favorites. So we'll get to hear some of the gentlemen that are in alienology versus ufology. Now, many people follow those that fly are those that believe alien civilizations exist, not just in anthropology and archaeology. Ah, there we go. There's Janet. Oh, we got two Janets. I think now all we have to do is bring on Preston Dennett. So, Janet, now we've got two of you, and we can hear something happening. There we go. That's a better camera. She's off again. So
I'm over here.
there, we can hear you. Okay, wonderful. Can you bring on?
I don't see him. I don't know where he is.
He's in your green room.
No, he's not.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to send him another invite.
Yes.
Do you have his phone number?
I probably do.
I just called him and talked to him.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to get in the right.
He said he was in the green room.
I'm sure I had three of them, Janet, but the ones you sent us, this is the right one.
Okay, I can send it to him again right now.
Please.
Oh wait, there's something here. Hold on. Let me go back.
All right, folks.
That's you again, TJ. You're duplicate. Let me just send that to Preston real quick. I need to focus, and I'll call him and I'll say try that link because that's definitely the right one.
I only see two of you, Janet. I don't see two of me. What about you, Bret?
Wait, let me just focus on getting this Preston.
Well,
I can't do 5 things at
once. Well, mute yourself,
second.
Janet, and we'll continue talking.
Okay, let me go. I can talk now. I'm just setting this to Preston now. How do I get him? Bret, do you want to call him real quick and tell him to look at the new link?
I'll do that right now. You want me
to do it? I can do it.
Okay, well, we can email him the link.
I did. Let me mute, and I'll call him again.
It's the you.
I'm calling him right now.
Oh, you're calling it. Okay, somebody call him. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that my mic just totally fell apart. I've had it for about 10 years. It was a great mic. Called a Yeti.
Hi, Preston. Hey, check your email.
Oh, all right.
Supposedly you have a link in your email.
All right, I will try this.
Try the new link. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay, see you in a minute.
Okay, folks, thank you for being patient. It's worth your while because all of us are ufologists, and we will get you as much information tonight as we can. I'm excited about this streaming on my Facebook, the one with red hair and dark glasses, Janet. I don't know how to tell you. Social media, and then the TJ Morris ET. I'm standing in Florida next to a post.
Hi, Preston.
Is this the famous?
My apologies. My mic that I've had for about 5 years decided to break completely off right as I went onto the camera, and I didn't have a backup mic.
Could you take that extra one down, and it'll only be a 4 square?
I won't have any sound then, so I'm not sure how to do that.
So your phone is the only sound?
Tell her to click on the picture of it. It's string.
Oh, there's someone else here.
Yeah, can you close that other window, Janet?
I'll lose the sound again.
Oh, so you need two windows up to have sound?
That's the only way I can do it. I can go away. You can do it without me. I don't know what to do.
No, we can still see your picture with you talking on the phone where you are.
But I don't want that picture because it's like a nasal shot. I don't have a way of doing it nice.
And we see you fine on the normal screen.
All right.
But if I put the picture on the other one, you'll have 2 of me. Anyway, let's get this into the shot. It's not going to be perfect. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going to order a new mic immediately. Okay.
TJ, lead us off.
All right. Okay. Well, Preston Dennett, we're so excited to have you. And we know you've been on many, many shows other than our own. This is my first time meeting you. Apparently you already know these other people. Preston Dennett, we've given you an author. We know you've done wonderful research. You're very famous in our world. Please tell us if you know anything about the three of us.
Well, I certainly know Bret and of Janet. I'm not sure we've ever met face to face.
We sat beside each other a whole weekend at one of Lorian's conferences.
Oh, all right. Okay. I thought
and Dr. Lessin.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. I'm familiar with Bret, of course. We were at a UFO con with I think some lady named Victoria ran it.
Yeah, it was
That
one
was
of those
many years ago.
back in the Bay Area. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah,
2013, something like that. Had a good time. We were in a trivia game. It was me, you, Michael Horn, and I always forget who the lady was, but we were the
Wasn't
team of
me.
4, and we answered some of the questions, but in the end we lost, so we didn't get the booby prize.
yeah, I remember.
And we're friends on social media, Preston. I don't know that you've ever met me. You may not remember it, but Janet flashed her phone towards you at the conference. I looked completely different then, but you probably don't remember. Do you recognize Teresa J. Morris or TJ Thurman Morris or TJ Morris on your Facebook? We're friends on many Facebooks.
Can't say that I do, but
Great. Great. Well,
I'm so
nice
sorry.
to meet you. That's okay. I'm pleased. All right. So Bret, knowing you the most, has probably now. I would like to ask you this, Preston. What got you into authoring books on UFOs? And then Bret Lueder, I understand you're endorsing his next book. So I was very encouraged to get you to come on to our show. So this is exciting for us, and we'll definitely have you back. But please tell me how you got into this UFO stuff, and then how you're endorsing Bret's book, and we'll let them do a panel around asking questions.
I'm happy to do it, Bret.
Right?
I would like to know what it's about. Yeah, I got involved in this field involuntarily. I actually shied away from it. Well, more than shied. I avoided it. I was actually not a believer. Didn't think it was true. I was vehemently skeptical, rudely skeptical.
Wow.
I just didn't think that UFOs were real. I bought the Air Force line, honestly, Project Blue Book. It's all explainable by hoaxes, hallucinations, and misperceptions. Don't tell me you saw a UFO. They're not real. If you think they're real, you're sadly mistaken. And that, of course, did change very quickly and very dramatically on November 17, 1986. And I'm sure you've heard of this case, the JAL Airlines flight Captain Tarochi over Alaska. This was on the news. I think it was Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw, one of these guys, is like, this pilot thinks he saw a UFO, ha ha ha. And they turned to the other co-host, news anchor, said, what do you think of UFOs? Oh, I don't know, ha ha. And just kind of laughed it all off. But they did show the picture of the pilot. And I thought, this pilot must be seeing a reflection off the ice cap, which is a ridiculous debunking explanation if there ever is one. He wasn't even flying over an ice cap. But at any rate, it did interest me. I thought to myself, this pilot is going to be grounded. He's going to lose his job. I was right about that, at least temporarily. But it turned out my brother Mark, my older brother, and 3 older brothers, an older sister and a younger sister, pretty big family. I thought they were all skeptical. But my older brother Mark, one day, came running into the house. I must have been 13 years old. So this was like 7 years earlier. And he said, I saw a UFO. And I just looked at him and I'm like, no, you didn't. There's no such thing. I was very analytically and scientifically minded. I know how far away the stars are. And there's no way you can travel between interstellar distances, not with our technology. That's kind of how I looked at it. But so I went to Mark and I asked him, what do you think you saw? And he described this incredible sighting of a metallic disc with lights on it, a dome on top, about treetop level, very close. He chased it down Reseda Boulevard in Southern California with his 2 friends. I'm like, Mark, are you kidding me? He's like, no, I'm telling you the truth. My friends Phil and Greg were with me. You know them. Call them. They will verify my story. So I did. And that's what started it all. I found out that my sister-in-law had a sighting, followed by a very close-up encounter with gray ETs. My other sister-in-law, she later told me, not right away, that she had encounters with little blue beings as a young girl. I had several friends and coworkers who had really dramatic encounters, missing time, and grays again, and the whole deal, being chased by a UFO. So that prompted me to buy books to disprove them, and I couldn't. The books pretty much convinced me that this was real, but even that wasn't enough. So I joined MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, in 1988, I think, early 1988, and became a field investigator. I joined every UFO group. I not only joined MUFON, I said, you know what, send me all your MUFON journals back to when you started publishing them. So I had 20 years to catch up on. I was a relative latecomer to this field. Now it's been 35, almost 40 years. And I researched it for 10 years, just doing everything I could to find out what's going on, writing articles, and put out my first book in 1996, UFO Healings, and kind of kept putting out a book on the average, one per year since then. So that's how it all rolled out for me.
That's a wonderful story, being a non-believer. Bret and Janet, I'm sure, have questions because they both knew who you were and what you did. And you were one of our ufologists. I'm sorry I haven't met you. I did mostly Mid-South Con and Pyramidology, and then I did one with Janet May 2017. But we have been working together in radio for all these years. I'm sorry we didn't have you on sooner. We did have Stanton Friedman and Dr. Bruce Maccabee, among many others in our group. All right, so if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Bret Lueder and then Janet to please pass the talking stick, is what Janet calls it. So okay. I'm going to mute, and I'm listening intently to their questions. Go ahead, Bret.
All right, Preston, always a pleasure to see you. 30 plus books in the last 35 years. I don't know if there's anyone out there that could match that in terms of output. And I have a few of your books. My favorite book is UFOs Over California, because being from California, just knowing the rich history California has goes back into the 1800s at least. And if you get into Native American stuff too, it could go back even further. So I really appreciated your work for many years. You mentioned something in your opening monologue about listening to the official story of the JAL Airlines case, I guess you could call it. It sounded like you're like me. If the government, the official story is a lie, and we've seen this, I know you've seen this many, many times now, countless times, I'm sure. Can we trust the government now, especially with this new disclosure stuff, the hearings, the timing of Grush coming out? I forget who the other guy, Elizondo, maybe something is the other guy. The release of the Tic Tac videos, all this seems to be strategically timed in kind of like a public relations campaign. Can we trust what they're telling us, and should we?
I don't. In a simple nutshell, no, I don't trust them, and I hate to say it because I know that there are good people in government. Right. And I think some people are really honestly trying to do a good job, and are honest people, and dealing with all the corruption and greed that is in politics. But when it comes to this subject, UFOs, and the folks behind the cover-up, who are hard to identify because we're not even precisely sure who they are, other than it's the Pentagon certainly, and NASA, the highest levels of the military and the intelligence agencies, and the military-industrial complex to a degree. I think the energy industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the insurance industry, the banking industry, we know that these are the folks behind the cover-up. No, I don't trust them at all. There's been rumors of disclosure ever since I got involved in this field, and it's never happened. We're not seeing disclosure now because we know that they have the footage of all the jets that have been chasing these things throughout the 1950s, gun camera footage. They probably have the footage of the UFO that landed at Edwards Air Force Base that we know Gordon Cooper filmed, or didn't film, but actually developed and saw the footage. They have so much evidence, and we're not seeing a bit of it. Right. I don't trust them. They're still lying. Cover-up is not speculation. It's demonstrable. The documents released through the Freedom of Information Act. Citizens Against UFO Secrecy tried to sue the NSA years ago and got
Right.
nothing but blacked out documents. No, I don't trust them, not even a little bit. I think they're lying. And we can prove this. I mean, the congressional hearings that began about, what was it, almost 4 years ago now, where Moultrie and Daley, remember those two folks, the head of the Defense Department,
Yeah.
were asked flat out, have we ever shot at UFOs? Both very quickly answered no. That's a lie, and we know it. I would point to the Battle of LA, 1942, when we shot 1,400 rounds of ammunition. This is very well verified. We've got the documentation. I've talked to first-hand witnesses. 5 people died from falling shells and car accidents and heart attacks and what have you. And that's just one incident. I would point to Frank Ficino Jr.'s work, Shoot Them Down, a book he put together, which laid it out in black and white. Yes, we've shot at them. That was a lie. Flat out to Congress. They were asked, have you heard of the Malmstrom incident? Malmstrom, what? No, we have no reporting on that. And of course, Malmstrom, 1967, UFOs showed up, basically shut down the intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Right.
And they're saying they have no reporting on this, and they're the head of the Defense Department. Not credible. They're lying. And they're still lying. So no, I don't trust them. I agree. It's very tightly controlled. It feels very propaganda-ish. We're doing, people say, well, they take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. No, it's 2 steps sideways and 1 step back and then 4 steps back. It's ridiculous. I get really passionate about this because I'm tired of the games. I don't think we need to even look to them for disclosure at this point. I think it would be a mistake.
Okay, last follow-up. Is that why you left MUFON?
Well, I never officially left MUFON. I still subscribe to their journal. I still support them. I stopped actively investigating for them because I felt like I could be much more effective independently. Because I'd get a case and I'd fill it all out and I'd submit the report and it would get logged and that was it. I'm like, well, shoot, the word is not getting out on this. And so I thought, no, I need to find a way to educate people. That became more and more something that I felt was important to do. And I just couldn't do that through MUFON. So ultimately, I became much more of an independent researcher. But I did take their test to become a field investigator.
Back in the day, sure.
Yeah, and it was a hard test.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you took it, it's like, what 100, 200 questions?
I have taken it, yes. Janet.
Okay. So Preston, Teresa and I are lifelong experiences going back to the crib. So I know that you have done some books. And you've interviewed experiences, right? Are you doing interviews with experiencers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So what is your criteria for deciding to interview somebody? And what do you hope that we will accomplish by doing all these interviews when it comes to disclosure?
Yeah, well, I don't have a whole lot of criteria in terms of just talking to a person about their experiences. I'm willing to talk to anyone who, is reaching out to me because that is my primary purpose, is to help people. Most of the people I talk to, I don't officially interview or write about their experiences. But if I were to do an official interview about their experiences, what I basically look for is, 1, do you have an experience that is beyond a simple sighting of an anomalous light? Now, when I was a new researcher, anything was of great interest to me. So if you saw a light zip by in the sky and it made a right angle, I'm like, I want to talk to you and let's talk for a couple of hours about this 3-second sighting you have. But I've come to learn that there's not a whole lot of data that you can pull out of, a very simple close encounter of the first kind. So I get very excited when someone has a much more extensive encounter, particularly if it involves perhaps missing time, a landed craft, face-to-face encounters with humanoids or entities of some kind, or an onboard experience that's at least partially consciously recalled. And I absolutely love it when you get a multiple witness case or a case with some kind of corroboration or supporting evidence of any kind. So yeah, I basically those are the kind of cases I really enjoy, and I feel like have the best pay dirt, the most potential to answer a lot of the questions that are still surrounding this subject. So, what was the second part of your question?
Okay.
Uh,
I don't remember. What did I say?
I think
I forgot.
what
Anyway,
was
I have a follow up though. I have a couple. So, what do you think of the people that are reporting that they are involved in the secret space program? And what would you do if you were to take on something like that? How would you handle your interview with them?
well, that's a good question. I don't get a whole lot of cases of this. I think there's probably stuff going on within that arena that we're not aware of. However, some of the stories that are coming out that I see, some people are doing the lecture circuit on super soldiers on Mars, so to speak. Well, basic science will refute a number of these stories because you cannot live on Mars for any length of time. And I'm very skeptical of like the 20 and back stories where people are age regressed, because I just cannot wrap my head around that. Here's the thing. Ironically, finding out UFOs were real in a way made me even more skeptical, more discerning, because I felt like I had been lied to for years. I was. There is a cover-up, and it's not being taught in schools. It's not being treated objectively in the media or factually or fairly. So I've become much more skeptical. And when someone says they've seen a UFO, I go through a whole vetting process with it, or if they've had an experience, and you can only vet a person's experience to a certain degree by getting character references, verifying any factual information that they impart to you. You certainly do get a sense of when a person's telling the truth, because there are little cues, certainly, and people become very emotional often when they're telling their story. And I do a whole interview process with first an informal interview, then a recorded one, and follow-up interviews, and this sort of thing. But as far as the secret space program, I'm skeptical a lot of the information that's coming out on that. I am, because some of it simply cannot be true. I mean, it's worse than some of the flat Earth conspiracy stories. That's just, I don't think the Earth is flat. No,
What
I
about
don't.
the people that are just they're involved with the ETs are involved with the military? They have experiences where they see ETs on Earth interacting with the human military. What do you think of that?
I'm skeptical of a lot of those cases as well. I think some of this can be attributable to what we would think of as my labs, military abductions, which are a real thing. I've certainly gotten a few cases of those. I do think the Eisenhower meeting at Edwards Air Force Base in 1954 has some really good reporting on it. And I think that was probably one that I do put some credence towards. But as far as ETs handing over technology to quote allow quote abductions, I don't see any good reporting on that. Talking to all the contactees I've talked to, I don't see any good evidence for that. What I'm seeing is that ETs would never in a million years hand over technology of any kind to a corrupt, basically, I hate to say it, nefarious, evil government. So I am skeptical of accounts where people said, ETs are working directly with our government currently. I think ETs did come down and communicate and tried their best. I put out a YouTube video. I did some research on this. World leaders who had close encounters. And there's a lot of them. It's, of course, Reagan had a couple of sightings, and Carter, but there's a whole long list of senators, and representatives, and governors, and world leaders all over the planet. Like the president of Mexico and I think the president of Brazil, a guy from Russia, Ilyan Kurzamanov or something.
Good.
I forget his name, but yeah, there's been definitely some interactions there with world leaders.
So let me just so what would it take for you to move past your skepticism and accept that there are aliens interacting with humans on a different level than what's currently being put forth on the planet, that it's kind of victim or, what would happen? What would it need to convince you there's collaboration between
With,
extraterrestrials and humans? Cooperation.
oh, I think people are having contact, no doubt. People all over the world. And that's what I focused on mostly. There's absolute interaction. I do believe people are being taken on board craft. So that, I think the reporting on that is conclusive at this point. I mean, I think we have enough evidence to prove in a court of law that people are interacting with ETs.
Right.
But as far as government, I don't know. I put stuff on the back burner until you can get enough corroboration to prove an account. It's easy to make any claims. And the problem is, and I think we all know this, there's not only a cover-up and suppression of UFO information and evidence, there's disinformation. There's a very concerted disinformation campaign that's heavily funded and very carefully orchestrated. So there are researchers out there who are not honest-to-God researchers. I don't trust them one bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to name names, but you can see how they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. I mean, they'll say one thing, they start backpedaling, and the next thing they're contradicting themselves. And no. And there's other people who are, quote, experiencers, and I'm very skeptical of some of them too. And some of them have been basically caught as hoaxers, or certainly accused of it. So yeah, I mean, it's a mess. It's a mess out there. That's why I prefer to just stick to interviewing contactees. So I think the only valid information we're getting is certainly not from government folks. I'm very skeptical of people who are coming from government. And I think that there's a lot of important whistleblower accounts out there. But the intelligence agencies and folks like AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Reconnaissance Office, and NASA, but I don't trust. But I think if we look to the contactees and you can vet their stories, because now we have enough contactees. It's not just 1,000. It's not even 10,000. It's a lot more than that. I mean, if you were to go through databases like MUFON and NUFORC alone, that's hundreds of thousands of encounters. If you take up the whole world and all the documented, investigated cases, we're approaching 1 million. We have the evidence to prove that this is a real thing that's happening. And I know some people like to bounce different theories like time travelers and interdimensional beings and the Jacques Vallée theory, the phenomena that wears different masks and is actually not ET at all. I don't subscribe to that. I do think a lot of stuff gets put under the UFO umbrella that doesn't belong there. I do think there are interdimensional beings, little people in all cultures, and gnomes and fairies and what have you. But I think for the most part, what we're dealing with is extraterrestrials in the classic sense. And it's far, far more numerous than the certainly average person has any idea of.
Okay, I'm going to pass this to Teresa. Your turn, Teresa.
Thank you. Well, Preston, with all the books out there on UFOs that I could see on Amazon, it looks like from your subjects that you're more an advocate than a skeptical person. However, you come on, introduce yourself that way. I was many things. I do recommend misinformation versus disinformation and information. And I have been an investigator. I've been a contactee. And I've been a government employee, and I've been in uniform, and I've worked for the United States Navy. But I became an author. And what I would like to do is ask you, how do you feel about near-death experiences versus those of us that just work like I would mention Stanton T. Friedman, Dr. Bruce Maccabee. Did you interview either one of these gentlemen?
I
These
talked,
are-
yeah, I didn't interview them in an official capacity, but I certainly sat down with Stanton Friedman and had some discussions, and I corresponded briefly with Bruce Maccabee. I respect them both as researchers. I think they've done some really good work.
Good.
And no, I wouldn't put myself under the label of UFO advocate, really.
Okay. An author, UFO author with all the books of UFO here.
Yeah, I would call myself a researcher.
Okay.
And one term it just kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit is when people say, "Yo, are you a UFO believer?" Belief has no effect on the truth. To me, belief is faith. Either truth is truth, and it makes not one iota of difference what you believe. Either it's true or not. And I think what I'm trying to really do is provide and factual information to the degree that we can vet it. And I think that we do have enough evidence to prove this. So I would call myself a researcher first, an author second.
All right. So you haven't had any individual sightings or visitations or even lucid dreams or near-death experiences for 4 different categories? Interdimensional anything?
I have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very extensive, in fact. And when I started doing my research, it became immediately clear to me that there are connections to these what we would call the paranormal,
right?
And consciousness and psychic abilities. So it first branched out to ghosts and to astral projection and near-death experiences and channeling, and I studied demonology and angels, multiple personalities, precognition, levitation, Bigfoot. I'm really trying to figure out what's going on here. So I've looked into all of this stuff.
Good. Good.
And when I found out UFOs were real, and I'm interviewing people, I'm like, well, gosh, this is so cool you've had this experience. And I believe you, there's that word, but I don't know. So I really wanted to have my own experience because I needed to know. If I was going to move forward, I needed to know that this was a real thing. And I started having sightings, and I did have missing time. I've had many very close encounters. I've had some telepathic contact. I did finally have a fully conscious onboard experience.
Oh, tell us. Tell us about that.
Yeah, astral projection as well. I got really into that because that's something you can read about, but you can actually do it. And I love near-death experiences. I've learned a whole lot from those. I've got every book, every person I can interview who's had that. So yeah, my first real encounter of any, real import, I guess, was in 1992, late July, when I was driving home towards Canoga Park from Woodland Hills in Southern California. And I saw what I thought, this was late at night, I saw what I thought was a bird swooping towards my car, and looked up, and it wasn't a bird, it was glowing and it was round. And I thought, well, could this be a firecracker? Because it's late July. And as it came swooping down on a parabola and stopped in front of my windshield, I thought, well, that's not a bird, it's not a firecracker, it's clearly not a reflection, but let's make sure. So I'm looking at it. This darn thing was right in front of my windshield, the size of a golf ball, and darted back and forth a few times and stopped again, clearly of intelligent control. And just a few moments it was there and then darted away. And that's where the experience ended for me. And I completely forgot it. I had absolute amnesia of that entire incident until some months later when it just popped back into my head. I'm sticking to my guns here. This did happen to me. And I'd interviewed enough people by that point who said, a UFO landed in front of me and we all just forgot about it. Everyone in the car, we didn't talk. And we remembered later. I'm like, what? How can that happen? I understand now because I had it happen to me. So that was my missing time encounter, and which I started to recall things in dreams of being on board. Those are dreams, So, but years go by, and that was a big year because I went up to Mount Shasta, had another sighting with my brother and sister where we communicated with a flashlight. Went back to LA. Stephen Greer came into town to form a CSETI group. And I heard him lecture. He used my cases. So here's how you call down a UFO. Here's a case from Preston, Dennett, where this guy called down UFOs using lights and lasers. Like, oh, wow, this is cool. But we went out that night, a smaller group of us, and had a UFO encounter. It was an anomalous light. And we went out the next night and had another. And over the next 5 years, actually, we would go out every couple of months. And often we would see anomalous lights. And sometimes we would actually have some degree of communication. And it just started ramping up from there. I was interviewing this one lady, and I was kind of doubting her story a little bit when I got a very strong impulse to run to the roof of my condo, and a UFO showed up, and it communicated telepathically with me. And basically said, no, we're real. This is real. She's real. Watch this. And it darted around and disappeared. And later she called down UFOs again for me real close up. So started having more and more encounters. And at some point I realized, well, gosh, could I call myself a contactee? I was very reluctant to do that because, I want to be an objective researcher. It's not about me. I'm much more interested in interviewing other people. But as the encounters began to stack up, I realized, I became aware that they were aware of me. After one lady said, I was basically told to seek you out. And then I interviewed a lady by the name of Dolly Safran, wrote a book about her experiences.
Ah, that's who's in our chat room. Aha.
Yeah. And she told me that the ETs, she was looking for someone to tell her story. She couldn't find a researcher she trusted.
Oh.
And she's got fully conscious encounters.
Great.
No hypnosis, no fear, fully conscious, very interactive, and a lot of them. And proved it to me after I researched her. I mean, she's got the photographic evidence, medical evidence. I've seen her do psychic stuff. I mean, I saw the UFOs myself. And I started to become a participant in her, experiences. But she told me, the ETs told me to seek, they gave me your name. I'm like, oh my God, here we go again.
Oh boy.
I got more and more clues. I mean, a guy called me from England and didn't say how he found me. He sought me out. He had an encounter where the ETs said that they were warning about nuclear proliferation and giving the messages they often give people, war and pollution and destruction of the environment. And I basically counseled him through it because that's what he was looking for. He just wanted someone to talk to. He had some questions. And we were just about to hang up after an hour or two. And he says, I've got one more thing to tell you. This was Gray's. And they came to me this morning and they told me your name. They said, you should call this guy. So, at that point, I'm like, okay, maybe I am a contactee. But on my birthday, it was 2022, which would be just about 2 years ago now. I was having a dream and I was looking at a UFO and suddenly I woke up and I was being pulled up into a craft. And I recognize the feeling. It's a very distinct feeling you get.
Definite feeling, yes.
Very electric and it's hard to describe unless you've experienced it. But I remembered. I'm like, well, here we go. And I hope I'm never coming back because I'm ready to go. My experiences have always been really positive and thrilling. I love it. I mean, I'm running towards these UFOs. I think the fear that's surrounding the subject is misplaced. I think a lot of the stories that we're hearing about negative encounters are fear-based. When you're in a lot of fear, it can come across as a very negative experience. At any rate, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I was pulled on board and found myself laid on a table. And there was a tall, kind of hybrid-looking young woman who looked human enough, but had enormous eyes and very pale skin and very small features and tight curled blonde hair, really blonde, and white jumpsuit. And there's short little guys around me who I wasn't really looking at because I was looking at her. And I was trying to get up. And they're like, no, stay down. We need to make sure you're fine. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm really fine. I've had a lot of out-of-body experiences and interdimensional stuff, so it didn't faze me a bit to have gone through that because it took a full 30 seconds or a minute to get up into this thing, which is a long time. They pulled me right out of Reseda. I don't know if you know the San Fernando Valley, but it's densely populated.
Yes.
So they must have been way the heck up there. I don't know. I couldn't say for sure. But I was fully awake. This was not a dream. And finally, they let me off the table. And I walked straight to this lady who was of tall gray. Most beautiful entity I've ever seen. She had just this natural grace about her. Very large, pear-shaped head, large wraparound eyes, wearing a kind of like a gown or a smock.
It was white?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
As I recall. I was a bit overwhelmed. I will say that. I'm like, wow, I cannot believe this is happening. But I walked right up to her and she tilted her head and looked at me and gave a very faint smile. Said, so, is this what you thought it would be like? And I said, no, this is so much better. This is so much better. And I'm like, can I explore? And I said, go right ahead. And it was a big round room, about as big as, 40 feet across. And there was panel windows tilted at a 45-degree angle all the way around, a very smooth floor, smooth grayish walls, a fairly high ceiling. There was a bunch of people standing in the center, mostly quite young. And they were out of it. I tried to talk to them, get their names, converse, but they were a little bit dazed. Some were and some weren't, but they were the ones standing in the center. But there was other people standing towards the windows. And so I went towards the other side where I saw this young Korean girl and I was going to talk to her. I think she was Korean, Asian looking.
Uh-huh.
And she was smiling and the craft dropped down because we were way up in space and dropped down to Earth in a split second. It was the coolest thing. She went, woo! Oh, it was so neat. I mean, I just can't even express how cool this was for me. The craft rocked a little bit. I was like, wow, look at that. You can actually feel that. I looked over off on the far side of the room. There were two really alien-looking dudes. I mean, full on, probably grays, but they looked a little different than what we normally hear. And I was kind of distracted looking out the window anyway. But then it rose back up, and I walked back to the center, and they wanted to give me something to drink.
Right.
Okay. And it was in a little glass tumbler, a kind of a bright greenish liquid, very thick. And I drank a sip, and it tasted very, very subtle, slightly sweet, slightly kiwi lime-ish. And they took it, and I'm like, wait, I'd like another sip. And they looked at me with absolute surprise. I'm like, okay, if you really want. And I took, because I wanted to taste it again. And I did take another sip. And then that basically blacked me out.
All right.
But I woke up, I'm like, oh my gosh, this happened. I can't wait to tell Dolly. It turned out that this was, the craft that she basically pilots.
Oh, Dolly does.
She pilots.
But she walks around as a humanoid on Earth, and yet she knows she is sentient and has another, I guess, doppelganger, possibly? Or how would you describe it?
No,
Person.
she's just a normal person. She does, have some interesting genetics.
Okay.
I will say that, which point towards her being a hybrid. She's been told she's a hybrid, but she proved it to me. It's like, look I want to show you my genetics. They don't know what some of these genetics are. Like,
Wow.
oh my God. This is something I do ask a lot of contactees. Do you have anything unusual going on in your genetics? And often they do.
I've never been asked that, but I'm sure Bret's got some questions. We'll have to bring Dolly and you both back on to have in the future. I don't know our booking schedule. Janet has that, but apparently she's been joining us in the room, right? So is that Dolly Safran?
Yep, Dolly Safran. Yep,
Safran.
She's
Wonderful.
a generational contactee, as are most contactees.
You're amazing. And so we cannot put you in a box. And I appreciate that. Most of us, all three of us, are multifaceted beings. And we're very open-minded. We hope to have this to be a safe platform for everyone. I'm sure everyone's had a head spin from a possible skeptical to one that's coming and going on UFOs or whatever you want to call it. Today's reality. Let me turn this over to Bret. Thank you so much I want you to keep talking forever, but we'll have to have you back with Dolly. Bret, and I will mute. My turn.
I agree. Preston and Dolly would be an awesome show. We might have, that could be like a 10-hour show. But since we just have a 1-hour slot for the show, Preston, great story. Appreciate you sharing that. I get the feeling that there's competing public relations campaigns going on here. You've got genuine contact. I think there's a lot of evidence for that. And then you've got guys like Stephen Greer or Dr. Richard Boylan who are saying that there are genuine contacts, but that most of them are faked by the government or secret military, someone. And my question to you is, what is the game? Is there genuine ETs trying to work with humanity one at a time, like yourself, like taking you into the ship, putting you on a table, giving you a tune-up or a download or whatever it is that they're doing for the benefit of humanity? And then it seems like there's maybe some ETs that are working with government that maybe don't have that best interest in mind for all of humanity, maybe the reptilians, maybe certain factions of Greys. What is your take on this? It seems like there's a struggle going on and humanity's at the center of it.
Well, I don't know that I have any good evidence that there are negative ETs working with government. I'd certainly, I'm just basing on my own research and certainly what I've read. I'm skeptical of that because I don't have any good contactee reports that say that at all. I think the ETs are working very hard to do a few things. One is to uphold our genetics, to heal people. This is basically, in my assessment, just looking objectively at what happens when people are taken on board. I've got 300 plus healing cases documented. Most major researchers have cases of this kind all over the world, including those who take a dim look, a dim viewpoint, like Jacobs. He's got a bunch of healing cases. And most contactees I've interviewed feel that while it can have a lot of fear and trauma in the beginning, ultimately they feel it's a beneficial experience. So reptilians, I don't get a whole lot of those. I think they're probably crypto-terrestrials, honestly, living, somewhere on Earth. I think because I've gotten a few cases and there was no UFOs involved. So I wonder about that. I think the ones we have to worry about are our own governments. And yes, I don't think most cases of contact are, quote, my labs, but I think there's a lot of them out there. And I think our governments are working really hard to portray ET contact in a negative light and basically are planning what the false flag that's so much buzz in the community right now, that there's going to be a fake ET invasion. And that's what it looks like they're planning and working towards. I'm much more worried about the folks behind the cover-up than I am the ETs, because I think if you look at the contact experience objectively, you can see it's one of healing, guiding, teaching, warning, waking people up to their own psychic abilities, their common heritage with ETs, their immortality, the fact that we do survive death. That's what the contact experience is all about. almost all contactees are profoundly psychic. Almost all contactees have a basic, a little bit of a spiritual enlightenment. They're profoundly environmentalists and working hard for the betterment of humanity. I think this speaks volumes about the ET quote agenda. I hate that word, but ET mission, the goals. So yeah, I'm very worried about the government folks, and I don't think ETs are here to harm or scare or take over or eat people or anything like that. I've got no good reporting on that. The people I talk to, by and large, I'm going to say it's close to 90%, probably a little more. I feel like the contact experience was one that they would never trade for anything.
Wow.
A mixed bag in the beginning, surely, with trauma and PTSD and insomnia and nightmares. But once they get past that, then they start really understanding, no, the ETs are not here to hurt or harm. That is not their agenda.
Okay.
That's the government agenda or secret government.
Okay, so what is the actual agenda then? If the government's hoaxing or staging all these things and making people think they're aliens, why are they doing that?
I wish I knew. I can only speculate. It's not my real area of expertise. I don't trust them. I think they're liars. I think they're nefarious. Even outside of the UFO community, look how they treat people. Look at the division of wealth. Look at what's happened to soldiers who've been irradiated, sterilized, given hallucinogenics, the mind control. This is all outside of the UFO community.
Absolutely.
And it's bleeding right into it in a big way. I think they've got an agenda that serves their own best interests. The ET threat is the threat to the cabal's control, enslavement of humanity, and their collection of all the wealth that they can get. It's a horrendous situation. The greed and corruption is off the charts. We're dealing with something that is almost unfixable at this point. And that's how it looks to me.
Okay. Janet?
Okay. Well, Preston, I'm not sure where we are, how much time we have left, but I know we started late, but I just wanted to add that I worked on a military base, and when I was there, I was very fortunate. I ended up working alongside extraterrestrials, but I'm not going to go into that in the show because I don't want to go into proving it and not proving it. But I've done 1,200 interviews, and there's a number of people that have had positive experiences working alongside extraterrestrials. They weren't my labs; they were colleagues, but that's another whole category. I'm trying to think of what did I want to ask you before this. I just wanted to do a time check.
We could go a little bit over since we started late.
Yeah, Janet,
Yeah.
we've got 58 minutes into this recording, but we got started roughly. So it's up to Preston.
Yeah.
Let's go
All
an
right,
extra 10
so,
minutes.
Preston, if you can go over.
Yeah, we'll go over. Okay, just want to do a time check. So I'm going to pass it to Teresa. I'm drawing a blank right now, but go ahead, Teresa. You asked your question.
Oh,
I'm
yes,
drawing a
Janet and I. All right, Preston, Janet and I diligently have been searching out people and doing this for years and years. Not haven't made a penny on it. We are open source intelligence, and we don't do it for the government, and we don't do it for anything except just I have the Ascension Center, and right now Bret has interviewed me a couple of times about that. But you're right. This is a multifaceted, multi-layered, ingenious transcendence. I don't know what to call it, because just open minded people that are open to the fact that there's more than angels and demons, I guess, and various levels of deities and ETs and all kind of beings out there. It's just a way to open up the called awakening. But now the woke process has been taken over with all political agenda and military industrial complex contracts and who gets what around global order domination. So we're trying to do something that I would really enjoy having you back. And Janet Lessin tonight, we got a little late. So is there anything, Preston, you could share? Because Janet and I are very open to helping others in our community. Now, we have a spiritual and a science community, but it's hard because we're all independent researchers, we're all independent consultants and authors. But I'm doing my best to call it an ACO club for lack of anything else. But Dr. Bruce Maccabee assisted us in 2014 calling it the Alien Contact Organization. So, but all people of all walks of life are welcome. But if you could help bring this together, with every time I talk to somebody, they have a group or Earth something or a ET something. So any way you can help bring all this together, all of us independent researchers, welcome to have you speak, in other words, on whatever you feel like, and especially with Dolly.
Yeah, well, I like what you're saying, because that would be so awesome if we could, as researchers and experiencers for that matter, come to a consensus about what we know to be true, what we know not to be true, the direction to move forward with, just some basic, sort of a baseline of what we know.
Right.
And I would encourage everyone who's had an experience to step forward, because you can do it anonymously. I think a lot of the high strangeness aspects of contact makes people quite wary, and there's still a hostile environment out there in terms of ridicule and disbelief.
Oh yeah,
it's gotten immensely. So much better. It really has.
And the My Lab's gotten carried away from the 50s and 60s, but the CIA and all of that, and then people taking that all into the military-industrial complex for whatever reason, drugs or whatever, whether it was Big Pharma trying to get it approved or not. I think we've gotten to an extreme, but that's gotten over into the, I guess you could say, psychological association and parapsychological. But the paranormal desk and everything that we're working, if we have an open mind, good heart, pure heart, and we mean well, and those that, like yourself, I mean, you're shocking to me, because in a lot of ways we all have that skeptical side of ourselves. It's hard to believe what we're going through. But, you know, you mentioned white, and you're the first one I've talked to that mentioned a white uniform. I don't talk to a lot of Pleiadian groups, but I don't know if they wear white or not. But my sighting, the most recent I had in Gulf Breeze, the woman was wearing white. So I was very impressed. And also you mentioned like a foreign Korean, or I don't know, what was the word you used? One of the people looked.
Yeah, she was, I think, just an Earth person who had been taken on board, honestly. There was a bunch of people on there who had been picked up prior to me.
Interesting. I'd really like to hear about that, because of my similar, just to compare notes on certain situations. That's what I would like. That's what I call research. It's not, it's learning your bits and pieces with other people's bits and pieces. You know, whether what all this means, you know, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? Why I even do this? Why are we here? So other people can see us. Except to get the word out that alien civilizations exist, and you are part of it. Back to you.
I just wanted to interject here, because we're running out the clock here, but I think the My Labs came about because the extraterrestrials were taking a lot of people, and then the military wanted to know what happened, and then it kind of got out of control. I don't think it was really bad intentions, just like what's going on, because there were agreements made about that, and I think that's how I discovered that the agreements were not being kept. What I would like to see in whatever kind of research we do as a group is to allow people to tell their story and not judge them up front, because if you stifle people and they have to fit into a box and preconceived notions, you're not going to get all the information. So what I do in my therapy practice when I do hypnosis is like, I let them tell their story. I don't sit there and judge it. Even judging it while they're telling it, people are all psychic. They can feel when they're being judged, even if it's just in the mind. So I encourage them to really crank it up, and I get this amazing amount of information when I don't have any kind of preconceived notions going into the session. It's like, here we go. I'm here to support you. What do you have to tell me? Because I always see people right first. I don't see them as they're coming to do a scam or they're coming to lie to me. I think on some level, whether it's something that's been injected into their psyche, on some level they believe it. And so that is another thing to sort out. You know, can they really interject all these thoughts into our mind and create alternative realities for us? That's another whole subfield. You know, I've talked to people that said that they were clones and they came into consciousness with a full preconceived idea of who they were and their parents, and it was all a lie. I don't know. I just don't judge anybody. I say, okay, that's your experience. Tell me more, and I encourage them. So I think if we do that as a community and just document it all, we'll see patterns, and then we can do a greater analysis by breaking down and correlating these patterns that we've seen, and then we'll get the greater story. Um, Bret, would you like to say? We are running out of time.
Okay. Well, last question. Preston, if you had one book aside from your own to recommend to a young aspiring researcher, what would you recommend?
Oh gosh.
There's so many good ones, right?
Well, if I can't choose my own, gosh darn it.
Well, you could. How about you? Go ahead. Choose one. Recommend one of yours because you got great stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I would choose Symmetry. I think if just to really give people an accurate view of what's going on, or Onboard UFO Encounters. That's another one of my favorite. But if I had to choose someone else's, I like Timothy Good's book, Above Top Secret.
Okay.
I
Good
like
one.
J. Allen Hynek's work, Jim and Cora Lorenzen. It's so difficult. There's some really good books out there,
Right.
and some not so good. You know, I mean, Communion is a great book. It's pretty scary, though. He's got a lot of fear surrounding his encounters, Strieber.
Right. Really
You know,
What about Colonel Philip Corso? Did you read Roswell, The Day After Roswell, or would that be on your list? Or
I read it,
William
of course.
Laszlo even?
Yeah, well, I found parts of it very compelling. Parts I'm like, this is. I found out later that chapter 1 is a little. I don't know how to put this. A little off. I think it was rewritten or something. I forget the story behind the whole chapter 1 of The Day After Roswell. I'm like, this is not exactly how I believe it went down.
That's the one with Bill Burns too, right? Isn't that the?
Yeah.
Didn't he write that with Bill Burns? Right.
Bill Burns. Yeah, he's a good researcher.
I think Corso, his resume appears to be 100%, legitimate. But yeah.
Well, taking
I love Stephen Greer's book Disclosure. I will say that. I thought that was a really interesting book. So he's done some important work in the whole, disclosure movement, giving whistleblowers a platform. But I totally agree with you, Janet, that we need to give people a platform. You cannot judge them. Each of us plays an important role, no matter what. I give kudos to anyone who enters this field and is willing to brave the ridicule and disbelief surrounding it.
Yeah, mute that other one, Janet.
Okay,
So, Preston,
I'm
in closing, can you tell us about your latest book? Want to make sure we get a plug in there.
Well, let me see. Symmetry is fairly recent.
Okay.
Symmetry, a true UFO adventure, all about Dolly Saffron. I just put out volume 5 of the Not From Here series, which are basically my articles that I've written over 35 years, all about the sort of unusual outlying types of cases, weird patterns in UFO encounters. I'm working right now on Symmetry 2, because we really only touched the surface of that. I also put out a new book called Humanoids and High Strangeness, which really embraces the whole paranormal and spiritual, I guess, for lack of a better word, aspects of UFO encounters. Because it's not just, a one-off with people being taken on board and examined. It's so much more than that. So, I know for a fact that people's spiritual aspects and psychic and paranormal have been edited out of various books, because they told me, this researcher didn't want to hear about, all these amazing stuff that happened to me. They just wanted to hear about me being physically examined and how scary it was. And that's just not, that's not science. That's not research. You have to collect all the data, and then you can move forward. So yeah, I'm really, it's a good time for UFO research. People are coming forward in droves. The cover up, while it is still in place, it's a complete failure. It's leaking like a sieve. It has from day one. I think we've had disclosure in effect from the ETs with the huge number of encounters that have already taken place. And I would just advise people not to look to the governments for answers, to look to the contactees. Look to yourself. Do your own research. Don't believe me. Don't believe anyone. Do your own research. Reach out for contact. And that's absolutely doable. Well, telepathic, certainly. I think anyone can do it.
Okay.
Excellent.
Wonderful. I think I speak for everyone here when I say, Preston, thank you for your time and your patience tonight with our tech difficulties. And it was an honor to talk with you again, as it always is. And where can people get a hold of you?
I'm pretty easy to find on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, or X, or Instagram. I have a website. Just punch my name in. It'll take you there, PrestonDennett.weebly.com. I have a YouTube channel. I do a weekly podcast with Dolly Saffron called The Light Gate every evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific, 9-11 p.m. Eastern.
Mondays.
And on Monday evening. And
How many hours are you putting into this? I didn't even know about this one with you and Dolly Saffron. That's new to me. So
we've been doing it for 1 year. It's a 2-hour live show. I'm doing this pretty much full time now.
Wow.
I worked for 35 plus years and finally left LA, sold my house. I couldn't live there anymore.
Where do you live now? If you don't, I live in Texas, right outside of Austin.
I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Georgia.
Ah, that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
I lived in Kentucky for 20 years, 7 years in Gulf Breeze. Well, we have so many of our own cases, Janet, Bret, and we're all working on books together. I would very strongly recommend that maybe we get together and us all do a little research manual and each do a chapter or two, and we can pull that together. If you're open to it, we're all independents. We're all researchers, authors, publishers, have podcasts. So it's very, what would you say, prolific right now. So, Preston, do you have a Gmail or an email that you'd like people to send after this show? Because it'll be on YouTube.
Yeah, sure. And it's super easy to remember. You can also contact me through my website, but my email, and I always love hearing from people, whether they've got a story or a comment or a question. It's my name, Preston, UFO @gmail.com. So PrestonUFO@gmail.com.
Great. And I'm UAP Associates @gmail.com for that type of story. UAP Associates. Janet Carol Lessin @gmail. Bret Lueder is B-Lou. His is interesting, like BEELU. B-Lou. A proton mail, more secure. Bret, you and Janet need to leave your next books, and then how can we get in touch with Preston? I don't have your phone number, Preston. I'm very out there as a news personality, TJ Morris, and you're friends with me. You just have to look me up. But all of us would like to have you back, if it's okay. Janet, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think it's time we end.
Yep.
Give them your
Thank you
email,
so much
Janet.
for joining us today. We're going to be here same time next week. And thank you. Aloha. Blessings. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Preston. Good night.
End the stream. Thank you. Aloha.